Thank you everyone for joining. We have the Attorney General who's going to give a very important update on where we are in the OneOhio plan and where we're going. Attorney General Dave Yost.
As all of you are probably aware at this point, the three distributors of opiates have proposed a resolution of all the outstanding lawsuits across the country for a global settlement. Ohio's share of that is about $808 million. It does not include our lawsuit against the manufacturers or against J&J. We think that the J&J case will probably settle as well. The $808 million that is part of this was split up like this. 30% goes directly to the communities to compensate them and help them deal with the aftermath of this tragedy of the American opiate epidemic. 15% goes to the state, and the vast majority, 55%, goes to a foundation that is controlled by a board that is controlled by local representatives, local government representatives, although there are state appointees to it. Make no mistake about it, this is a local board and local control. The money will be spent to combat the terrible price that Ohio has paid because of the wanton and reckless marketing of these dangerously addictive drugs. Now, I suppose it's important to recognize that there's no admission of wrongdoing on the part of the companies. However, the check that they're writing is substantial, and I don't think it's going to get any better. I'll talk about that in a minute. But right now, we're at a point of deal or no deal. We need to get at least 95% of the population represented by the litigating subdivisions in Ohio on board for this. The companies, frankly, are not interested in a deal that leaves lawsuits out there hanging, and perhaps understandably so. Well, where are we today? As of this morning, we have about 86% of the population represented by these governments has come on board. That's not enough. Candidly, I'm not even sure that 95% is going to get there. The distributors might even ask for something north of that, but certainly 95% of the population is a bare minimum. That's what we have to get in the door. Now, I want to reiterate something that I've implied, but I want to say it explicitly. There is no deal. There's no deal yet. And we need to have everybody on board for there to be a deal. The distributors can still walk away from this deal, and we need to put these resources to work in our local communities for treatment, for prevention and education. We desperately need this money on the ground combating the opiate epidemic. And we're in a position where a few governments could hold out and nix the deal for the entire state. That would be an even bigger tragedy. So you might want to know whether your community is in or not. Are they part of the 86% or part of the 14%? Well, later today, on the Attorney General website, there will be a button. It'll be very clearly labeled, "Who's in?" And I encourage you to log on and see if your community has signed on to this historic and very important deal to have cash flowing into our local communities to fight the opiate epidemic. This is no time for gamesmanship. This is no time for politics. This is not an R&D issue. This is an Ohio issue. Now, look, I want to talk about the alternatives here for a second. If we don't have a deal, if we can't get to 95% or better in Ohio, several things will happen. The first thing is that Ohio will go to trial. in September. We have a trial date in Madison County, and we will try our case. The local subdivisions, the counties, the cities, none of all y'all have a trial date. Settlements happen on the eve of trial. There won't be anything left for you. If this deal falls apart, you're going to be picking over last year's carcass for a few gleanings in bankruptcy court. There's not a better deal, but there are lots of worse deals out there. Now, I want to call on every politician in this state to do the right thing. The clock's ticking. We have to hear by next Friday, 5 o'clock, next Friday, August 20th. If there's not a deal by then, if we don't have the 95%, Ohio has no choice except to get ready for trial and move on. This is a time for all of us to come together. This is no time for politics. This is no time for posturing. This is no time to try to score points. This is a time to come together. This is we time, not me time. I'll be happy to take any questions that you have. Hi, Danny.
Hi, Attorney General Yost. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, all right, good. So can you talk a little bit about, I know you said you're going to release the list of the entities that are not part of this yet. Can you talk about what maybe some of the larger ones are, and what your office is, besides this press conference, what your office is going to try to get them on board so to get over that 95% threshold?
So as I said, we'll post that list. Two of the larger entities that we haven't heard from yet are the city of Cincinnati and the city of Akron. We certainly hope to have them on board. They're significant population centers. And let me reiterate, this doesn't hurt the state's claim. This hurts all the local claims. We've got a trial date. The local governments do not. So we will go forward if there's no deal. We will go forward and press the state's claims. It is local governments that will be left behind. We need to be in this together. I want to give credit to Governor DeWine, who was instrumental in helping us fashion this statewide agreement a year ago. We all saw this. We all knew it was coming, what the structure of it was going to be. Now's the time for we, not the time for me.
Thank you.
Is from Bennett Haverly with Channel 10.
Hi, Attorney General Yost. Thanks for taking questions. Most of mine are clarity based. Can you sort of explain the difference between what's happening here and what we've seen other attorneys general do in some other states where they've rejected some of these settlements, in some cases out of concern that the locals would not be able to file their own settlements or their own lawsuits or pursue their own actions? How does that marry with this? And separately, is there hesitancy from some of the local governments here? And if so, what have they told you?
Great. To the first question, some states have either passed a statute or by some other legal means sought to extinguish the claims of the local governments within their states. We didn't, we're not going that way. We're trying to do this cooperatively. We think we're stronger together. So I understand what they did. That was certainly an option that we could have pursued here in Ohio. Governor DeWine and I both recognize that the state, doesn't have treatment counselors and the resources to be able to combat this alone. The truth of the matter is these services are delivered in local communities by people who live in those communities. And we need to all stand together to get this done. So we didn't go the direction that you're referring to from a few of my colleagues in other states. Now, with regards to what the concerns are. I don't know that I have heard any specific concerns. We've just heard crickets. And we're calling on the next week on the 14% that are still out there thinking about it. TikTok, now's the time.
Next question is from Joe Ingles with the State House News Bureau.
Hello, Attorney
Joe.
General. Hi. I wanted to ask you about, you went to the court and got Sam Randazzo's assets seized. Can you tell us a little bit about that, why you did that, and what's going on with that?
Well, they're not seized, they're frozen, pending the outcome of the litigation that we have, the civil racketeering complaint, which we added him to last week. Mr. Randazzo in particular had moved a number of assets, and we were concerned that he was liquidating or perhaps hiding assets that would prevent the state from recovering after we have successfully litigated that case. So we went for a prejudgment garnishment order to try to hold the status quo. It's worth noting that it looks like some of the assets that were liquidated, the money came into an account and may have already been transferred elsewhere.
Okay, next question is from Jeremy Pelzer at Cleveland.com.
Hi, General. I wanted to ask you about the feds are saying that you had a brief conversation with Larry Householder about the House Bill 6 referendum. Can you tell us what you talked with the then speaker about in that conversation?
I did a brief interview with the FBI as a witness. They were asking about a call from my phone to Larry's phone on a particular date. It was very brief. My recollection, it was less than a minute. And that's as much as I'm going to say with a pending criminal investigation out there.
Looks like the last question is from WTNS. Your hands raised. Do you have a question?
Hello, Mr. Yost. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, this is Jeremy Scott at WTNS. I hopped onto this second part of the Zoom meeting late, so I apologize if you've already addressed this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Coming back to the opioid lawsuit, can you break down how it will be determined how each municipality will receive money in terms of the quantity of money? I understand that there's a bit of a mathematical formula that goes into that. Can you expound upon that?
So the 30% that goes to local governments is apportioned, and we can send you the spreadsheet that shows how that breaks down. The majority of the money goes to the OneOhio Foundation for disbursement. That board is controlled by representatives of local governments, and it will respond to regional requests for funding. So not a one size fits all. We're not going to try to do mathematical precision. What we're going to try to do is make sure that the money goes where it's most needed and is going to be spent for the greatest impact to combat this terrible tragedy.
Thank you.
I want to give one last call so we don't jump off. Any other questions before we take off? Seeing none. If you need anything, reach out to the comms office. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.